Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome back to my channel. And this is For the Love of Chemistry. Here we make chemistry simple, easy, exciting, and very sweet. Okay, so today I come with something you will love, and it is chemistry practical, but not just any aspect of chemistry practicals. I know I missed you guys, and I hope you missed me too. All right, so we are going to look at titration table. Somebody will say titration table, ordinary titration table. Wait till we start. Titration table. All right. So when we look at this titration table, there is a reason. First, I'll give two disclaimers. The first disclaimer is this. No matter how wonderful you are in your lab, how you're doing your thing, how you've done all the practicals, if you are unable to report it correctly, you will lose your mark, even though you're a wonderful practical person. You have done all the things. What you are interested in is in marking what you wrote. So if you make mistake with any of your table, unfortunately, you won't get your mark. That's number one. Number two is that your endpoint is expected to tally with your teacher's endpoint. So if he or she has an endpoint of, let's say, 20.5, and you are getting an endpoint of 30, you have failed, because that particular endpoint is an outlier. We are talking about a range of plus or minus 0.1. And if you are getting something far away from what your teacher is getting, then you are off. Are you getting what I'm saying? So that means that no matter how good you are, you need to have a knowledge of what your teacher's endpoint is, so that you will be able to make sure that no matter all the mistakes that comes with, let's say, the different reagents and other things, what you are calculating or writing down in your book is something that will give you the mark that you deserve. So what we are doing here is teaching you how to create table from your teacher's endpoint, as well as create a correct table, a neat table that will give you all the marks that is associated with a table. So if you are ready, let's go on. So now, the first thing you do, even before you start your practical or anything, is to draw your table and put in your parameters. Then when you get your numbers, you fix them in correctly. Now, listen very attentively. So the first thing you do is we start with this. So let's say let's look at our table like this. We have the first row. This first row is for headings. Headings. So the first heading is Burette readings. Burette readings. The second heading is rough titer. The third heading is your first titer. The fourth heading is your second titer. And your fifth heading is your third titer. Okay, so we've got this side. Now let's do this side. I want to write this well. Burette reading. Now let's do this way. So after this heading, you have only 3 spaces here for very specific things. The first one, listen, is final Burette reading. Final comes first. I know it doesn't make sense, but it will make sense soon. Final burette reading comes first. Then the second one is initial burette reading. And then the last one is volume of A used. So of course we bring this down here. Now, are you seeing my table? I want to explain so that I need you to get this. We are talking about the readings from the burette. That's what we are talking about. So that's your titration table. I'm working from home, so sorry about the noise. Burette reading, you have final burette reading, initial burette reading, and the volume of A used. Why I said volume of A instead of volume of acid is that sometimes you might be giving, let's say, an oxidizing agent as your A or a reducing agent as your A, depending on what they decide to do. So that is why I said the volume of A used. And it's not, please don't stereotype whatever you learn in practical chemistry. Use your brain. You are a scientist. What am I saying? Even though you have been taught with volume of A used, please read the questions, read in between the lines, and make sure that what you are writing here is what you are given, because they can change it at any time. They may not ask you to put A in the burette. Whatever you are going to write here is what you are asked to put in the burette. The pipette has a specific volume. So whatever that you are pipetting, it's either you are using a 20 cm cube pipette or a 25 cm cube pipette. So you are not looking for the volume of the pipette, of whatever that is in the pipette. But whatever is in the burette will be titrated against what you have pipetted. That means you are trying to get the volume of the content of the burette. So your titration table has everything to do with the burette only. Is that clear? That is why when you look, you see burette reading. So in your question, whatever you are asked to put in the burette is what has this table. I don't know if I'm making sense. So A is subject to change. A can be acid, is usually acid, but most times they still use an oxidizing or reducing agent depending. So I don't want you to be stereotyped. I want you to understand this so that whatever you are given, you are able to do what you ought to do. Right, let's go into it again. Now, you have your burette readings. I say you start with the final one. That's what you write first. Then you write the initial one before you write the volume of acid used. You will soon know why. Now, on this side, you have your rough titer. You have your first titer, second titer, third titer. This is not compulsory. Rough titer is not compulsory. As long as whatever you put here is within a range of plus or minus 0.1. Whatever you put here is within a range of plus or minus 0.1. Please take note of that. Take note. Now let's look at the units. Now, if you put a unit here, that means everything from here to here is under that unit. If you put a unit here, that means everything from here to here is under that unit. So you can either put your unit here, that means everything here has that unit, or here. But make sure you are consistent with the side you are adding your unit. I don't know if I'm making sense. So our unit is cm cubed. Like I said earlier, I can add it here or I can add it here. But you can't just add units here and then come and add here. You have to be consistent. You choose a particular side and put your units there. So all the direct readings are in cm cubed. Okay. Now let's go into it. Assuming that your teacher has an endpoint of 22.4 cm cubed, and then you want to make a table that gives a plus or minus 0.1 range. Now let's start with the first thing you record is actually your initial burette reading. In order to have a diverse number, like at least diverse number of burette reading, you have to have a diverse number of initial burette reading. Let me explain myself. Let's say, the burette has a range of 0 to 50. So whatever you will get in your final burette reading should not exceed 50. And whatever you will get in your initial burette reading can't be less than 0. I don't know if you are getting what I'm saying. So when you look at the burette, your burette reading is the burette has has a kind of, should I call it, 0 is at the top, right? And then the 50 is at the bottom. So as it's going down, the volume of acid is decreasing, the number is actually increasing, showing that you have used a particular amount of acid. Let me explain. Let's say this is the burette. Here is 50. Here is 0. But the acid is used through this particular mouth. So as this is 1 to 50, right? So as the acid is going down, the number here is increasing. So such that, let's say if your initial, that means you filled up the level of the A to get to this place. So your initial burette reading, initial will be where the volume of A is before you started the titration. So let's say this is our burette and we filled it up to this place, and this is at number 1. So our initial burette reading will be 1.00. Please, whatever you are writing here must be to 3 significant figures. It must be to 3 significant figures. Take note of that. So then we start our titration. The acid starts going down, and as it's going down, the burette number is increasing. So let's say we got a color change at, let's say, 22.5. Sorry, 23.5. The reason I said 23.5 is I am trying to make sure that when I subtract this from this, I will be getting nothing above this range. Let me explain again. Whatever you have in your initial burette reading, if this is your targeted endpoint, just add this to this and use it as your final. So that when you subtract 23.5 minus 1.00, you have 22.5, which is within the range of plus or minus 0.1 with 22.4. I will do the next one so you can get it. So let's say again, we have We have our burette, and here is 0, and then our acid is here, and this is at number 3, and of course down here is 50. And let's say remember that what we are trying to do is to get something that tallies with this and within a range of plus or minus 0.1. So if this is what I'm looking for, the only correct ranges will be 22.5 and 22.6. So whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to get my final volume of acid or volume of A used to be either 22.5, 22.6, or 22.4 itself. So whatever you are doing, just make sure that this is our goal. So there are many methods of doing that, and I'm teaching one method. I'll teach one method with this, then another method with this, and then another method with this. So the first method, like I've said, is to check just your initial burette reading. Just pick something that you know that when you add it together, it will not be above 50. Your initial burette reading and your final burette reading must not be above 50. Otherwise, you tell us how you got it. So let's say I pick something. Let's say initial burette reading to be, let's say 14. And I write 14.0. Now, because I have 0.00 here, I must maintain 2 decimal places. Must. You can't have 2 decimal places here and have 1 decimal place here. Take note of that. All these things are what WAEC checks. So if you started with 2 decimal places, you must continue with 2 decimal places. There must be uniformity in whatever you're doing. So let's say I chose 14 as my initial. Now, this 14, of course, whatever will be my final burette reading, in order to arrive at something within this range, is I will have to add 14 to this. So if I add 14 to 22.4, I'll have 36.4. But let's say I don't want to do 4 yet. So I can just add 0.1 to it, or 0.2. No, not point. Okay, yeah, plus or minus. So if I added 1 to, oh no. Sorry, the correct range is 22.3 or 22.5 because it's plus or minus. Oh, sorry about that. So if this is what we are expecting to get, so whatever I'm doing, I can either add 1 or minus 1. So let's say I added 14 to 22.4, which will give me 36.4. And remember, we are doing 2 decimal places, so I'll have to make everything 2 decimal place. Now, the next one, another method of getting this is, I'll start from under. If I want to get, remember it's 22.4, my teacher's title value. So whatever I'm getting should be range of plus or minus 22.4. So if I want to get plus or minus 0.1. So if I remove 0.1 from here, I'll have 22.3. Now, I'll put any number here that when I add it to this, it will not be above 50. Any number at all. So let's say I just say 15. 15, remember 2 decimal places, 0.00. These 2 must be 2 decimal places. I'll add it up to get my final burette reading. So this plus this will give you 3. This plus this will give you 7 and 3 and 0. Go inside. I'm working. So when you subtract this, you have 22.40. When you subtract this, you have 22.50. Are you seeing that they are all within the same range? Are you seeing it? They are all within the same range. So the first method is just add, choose your initial burette, then add it to your teacher's title value, make it your final burette, then subtract to get this. or you choose a higher number, but make sure that whenever you add it to your teacher's title value, it will be less than 50. So that's what we did here. So here we first chose the volume of acid we want to use by checking plus or minus 0.1. So in this case, we subtracted 0.1 from the teacher's title value. We wrote it, then chose an initial burette reading that is less than 50. That when you add it to this, will give you something less than 50. We wrote it, and then we added the two to get this. So in this one now, we'll choose our final burette reading. Let's say we choose it to be 49.00. Now I already know the initial burette, the volume of acid used that I want, because I'm not going to use rough to calculate. So I'm looking at this tool now. I already have the end point and I have minus 0.1. So here I will use plus 0.1. So 22.4 plus 0.1 will give me 22.5. And remember, 2 decimal places. So for me to get this, I'll simply say this minus this. So this minus this will give me 5.0. You have 8 here. 8 minus 2 will give me 6. 4 minus 2 will give me 2. All right. So that is our table. I hope you got it, but I'll do it again. So if this is confusing, I'll do another one so that you can get it. All right.